Today was a special day for me. Even the vague no mud flood in the title and the decode has been gift wrapped. The decode wrapped up with a bow, and it has. And the Lord has blessed me. I've been in this apartment now on scholarship at university for 3 years. It was very hard to get into, and there was some stress now that I'm leaving and going to another one. Today, that was somewhat averted as I finally toured the apartment. The manager upgraded me to a two-bedroom for the same price as a one-bedroom with Audi, and it was so unexpected. So I will have all the room I need, and the Lord has blessed it with. And now you have time, Paco. You don't have to, you're not going to prove it to everybody tomorrow, but it is such a comfort to know it. And as I turned the apartment and there was a washer and dryer, so I don't have to take my clothes out. And then as I looked and, remembering, okay, well, what am I going to teach, going forward? Well, the stones are crying out. It's a flat earth nation and Jesus is king. The next thing I got is the world has been taken over by the mafias. In the United States, it was Lucky Luciano right after World War II. It is the whole history that has been decoded since World War II. Satan loosed in 1711 Gregorian calendar, 1666 Julian calendar. They lived those years and they had certain people picked out that they were going to prop up, make statues of, and somehow from 1958 turn it, leave it to beaver world to where now fetish people would be going like, making jokes about leave it to beaver, like you were sure hard on the beaver last night in the kinky mode. It's a freaking messed up world. And I feel the Lord has shown me I can get a safe base camp here in Alamosa. I'll get a year contract. I'll be able to go to the mountains. I'll be able to plan my searches for places to hide people because there isn't a rebuild coming. There's a plasma event coming where the people in the big towns are going to be cooking and eating each other and then running to the country. We're in the country. And we still got tweakers and Trumpers with guns. There is going to be a time where you're not having your house assaulted every time. You don't have to worry about, well, tonight, 50 more hungry people who know I have stored guns and food are coming after me. That's the world you're looking forward to. That's the world you're preparing for. How you're going to live it is one thing. I'm going to go just a little bit of what I got tonight. I should stop the ramble, say, welcome everybody to Mud Flood was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate. You owe me in a fair and honest way. I like to show the thing and get that out of the way. There that is. And here's the Bible verse that we're going to start with tonight because it's weird and we're learning all of these new things. It says here, our God, Eloheu, 430, is greater. He's greater. He's building him a temple than all those other Ha Elohim, all the other gods. Now, crazy, right? Isn't it nuts that we've learned in the last, 4 or 5 years that Michael Heiser and those guys may have been wrong about Enoch, but they're definitely right. And it ties into what we were already teaching of the two creations. There was a creation in the image in Genesis chapter 1. They died like men in the flood because of Psalm 82. And then there was the creation in Genesis chapter 2 of men from the dust. A man who was created had life blown into him. Later, a woman was created from his side who didn't have to have life blown into her. We inherit through Adam. It's an amazing, wonderful thing. That let's read the verse in English. The house that I am to build will be great, for our God is greater than all the other gods. And so when he was going to, we'll talk about that house in just one second, but all the other gods, and here we're in First Chronicles chapter 20, simply to try to help put to bed the Genesis chapter 6 nonsense that if you're a giant, you're part demon, you're a clown-like situation. And we forget that the Bible is full of times where it even describes the rare, polydactyls, 24 fingers and toes, 6 on each hand and foot. But let's just pick this verse here. First Chronicles 20 verse 4, and after this there arose war with the Philistines at Gezer. Then Sibbecai the Hushathite struck down Sippai, who was one of the descendants of the giants. It doesn't necessarily say he is a giant. He's a descendant of the giant. Elhanan, the son of Jair, struck down Limni, the brother of Goliath. I would lean toward that being a giant. His staff, of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was war at Gath. There was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number, and he also was descended from the giants. And when he taunted Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother, struck him down. These were descended from the giants of Gath, as if there's other giants elsewhere. And they fell by the hand of David and by his servants, because that's the way it's supposed to be. That's just the way it is. And the Bible teaches that, yet the whole world is into, what are those sons of God that are demigods, demiurges, that are clown-like, breathing fire, that, oh no, they'll come to you if you take some mushrooms. That's a lie. That's a lie. They're tall people who could be saved if they were names are written in the book of life. Let's look at another, Second Chronicles. Now here's the dedication of the temple. Now when I'm teaching in Daniel about the abomination of desolation and the daily sacrifices are taken away, that's the sign that, oh, this is the abomination of the daily, the daily sacrifices are taken away. You can't do it anymore. And it's not good enough if you rebuild the temple. Every time the temples are blessed, it usually goes, God puts his mark on it. So Solomon gives a long, very godly and wonderful prayer. And as soon as he had finished his prayer, Second Chronicles 7 verse 1 starts, then continues, fire came down from heaven, consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. And the priests could not enter the house of the Lord because the glory of the Lord filled the house. And when all the people of Israel saw the fire come down and the glory of the Lord on the temple, they bowed down with their faces to the ground on the pavement and worshiped and gave thanks to the Lord, saying, for he is good and his steadfast love endures forever. And these, I don't believe, are hyperbolic numbers. I believe that that's how many people they had to feed that day, that when they dedicated the house. The takeaway is, do you think that the Zionist dispensationalists today are going to ignore Gaza, ignore everything else, and then Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu's fan club are going to build a third temple. And somehow that's good enough. You think God, Most High God in heaven, is going to fill it with its presence and let the whole world know once again the Most High Elohim, because the Spirit God is the creator and he created the other Elohim, because there was something to do in heaven where Satan said, if I could rule heaven, we could all do it. And I could have my angels run. It's as good as you could run a country. No, they can't. The rules are not God's rules. They are not God. It says in Psalm 82, they showed favoritism to their friends. They neglected the needy and the poor. I hope you're never accused of that, because it's something that God takes very seriously. Now, what were they doing? Who were they doing it? Well, they were making houses that were built in kits. You buying them, putting them together. Now, when Solomon's house was built, all of them, I'm just going to describe this one. When his own personal house was built, it was built with stone prepared at the quarry, so that neither hammer nor axe or any tool of iron was heard in the house while it was being built, because that might have distracted the King Solomon and his friends. So King Hiram of Nineveh, the very popular town to talk about in the Bible, Nineveh, that's where they prepared the stones at the quarry. So when it got there, they basically had to put them together like Legos. And they lasted until structure against the whole house, 5 cubits high, joined to the house with timbers, cypress. It was the most holy place, 20 by 20 by 20, overlaid with pure gold. It is the cube inside a cube. It is the sacred geometry of our brain. It's not Kabbalah, because Christ doesn't live in us, but he did walk the earth and die for those he loved from before the foundation of the world. And when they built, they built with stones that were prepared at the quarry. Building his own house took 13 years, even though it was in a kit. House of the Forest of Lebanon, length of 100 cubits by 50 cubits, height 30 cubits. That's Star Fort, baby. Hall of Pillars, 50 cubits, 30 cubits, everything sacred geometry, because God is the inventor of the golden triangle, or what is that? Now, when they're working with it, we see the repairs. Sometimes they're not as good as the original, because the originals, verse 9, were all made with costly stones. Once again, 1 Kings 7, verse 9, cut according to the measure, sawed with saws, back to front, even from the foundation to the coping, and from the outside to the great court. The foundation were of costly stones, huge stones, 8, 10 cubits, as impossible as that seems. And above were costly stones, cut to measure in cedar, great courses, everything was what's described in the Bible is what we see in the Star Fort cities. Now I have some things to go through. I'm looking up, I know the head volleyball coach, and I was a volleyball coach. 116 wins in basketball and 123 wins in volleyball in my first 5 years of varsity. I shouldn't be proud of that yet. It is hard to do, to win over 20 games average your first 5 years. Because the Echelon conspiracy, have you ever heard about this movie? In 2009, it's an action filled, and I guess these people are movie stars who are like they're not quite the A-listers, I guess, or maybe they're washed up A-listers or something. Now I know his father, he's the father of 2 movie stars, and he also is a movie star that did the famous Apocalypse Now. He was the guy in Apocalypse Now. But the plot of this one is a artificial computer goes rogue and takes over the world, but at the very end, the human echelon shuts itself down, having understood, oh, wait, I'm a threat to both the United States and to the world due to people could potentially misuse me. I will shut myself down. Way to go, CIA, and the world is saved, and the Senate Intelligence Committee. I didn't watch the whole movie. I just got the general gist of it. And actually, I don't think it was like, it wasn't trashy or, like that. Sometimes they want to make them like that. Okay. And before we get into these other things, I want to go back to that it was the mafias. The United States government made a deal with Charles Lucky Luciano. We're gonna look at his video, but remember that Lucky Luciano hung around with Meyer Rothstein. Both of these guys were 5'4" Jewish kid and a 5'5", so he was the muscle, Italian American, and they were dirty as the day is long. Jewish mob, prostitution, drugs, Murder Incorporated. That was him. But his father wasn't a poor man. And so he ended up cutting a deal with the reorganizing the Costa Nostra. That was him and his Jewish lawyer, Meyer Lansky. He goes to prison, he gets set free, because sabotage. Think about the importance of the docks in New York City. Well, the docks were run by the mobs. And if you're in a war or not in a war, if it's a fake war, a mob war to rewrite history, you have to come up with something. The Sicilian mafia, we had to go help Mussolini. The Navy, New York, and Luciano reach a deal so that he gets out of jail, and he promised to help by providing intelligence. And that's military intelligence. All because that they blew up it was the world's largest, most expensive ship in the world, fastest at crossing the Atlantic in a record 4.14 days, the most powerful steam engine, and it sunk in New York Harbor. And it was obvious sabotage, and the mob did it. And to stop that, because you can't have that in the middle of a war, that slows down your whole situation. They let him out of prison. They made a deal with the mafia. And you don't go back on a deal, or you act like, or I act like that's a big deal when our government is a mafia. They're extracting taxes with laws that were never even ratified legally. False Christianity, Roman Catholics, yet abortion, they're into it. It's Lucky Luciano. They is this computer might break it down little.
Well, in Dannemora, if your business is important.
They just repeat this over and over. Yeah, it's okay. I have to hit play. Why did it let me play it? If it's not one thing, it's another, right? All this is fake. He is just their puppet, like Donald Trump that was set up. They had a Jewish lawyer. They were the face of it. And you might catch that, he lived in the enrolled with the highest money men in the world and lived where the Rockefellers lived in the same hotel in New York at the same time. And the world was shocked when, oh my goodness, he's in the mob, because J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI saying there's no organized crime in the United States. It's all fake, man. And you're right. Accept it.
The man who would one day make the mob run like a big business was born in the poor Sicilian town of Lercara Friuli on November 24th, 1897, and given the name Salvatore Lucania.
Not very good.
It was a
Sorry.
town where most of the men, including his father, worked long days in the sulfur mine at the top of the hill. A hard life from which the family longed to escape. Hearing that across the ocean, America had streets paved with gold, they sailed to the promised land in 1907. The family found a flat in a Jewish neighborhood on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, just a few blocks from relatives in Little Italy. Only the
So in the Jewish part of town, the Italians were living there. Wow.
streets were not as promised. Housing was cramped and dirty. Crime was rampant. Young Salvatore, one of 4 children, enrolled at PS 40, but he rarely showed up at school. Soon, he was dumped into the Brooklyn Truant School. By age 14, he was a dropout. His first job, delivery boy for a hat maker, earned him $7 a week. Chump change to many of the young hoods that Charlie encountered on the streets. Their racket, shaking down immigrants who sold food and clothing from pushcarts. Salvatore also saw kids his own age.
Doesn't it just, that's history. Makes it seem like, oh, just one guy worked a little bit harder, but Maya Lansky came into the show and wouldn't let them take their lunch money. And once again, those guys, some people have a wandering eye, and it doesn't bother me. Some people have a wandering eye, and it does a little bit.
Lansky, who had become Luciano's most loyal partner in crime for the next half a century.
And they got together on the Lower East Side, sometime in their late teens, apparently.
And within 20 years, they owned the pensions, the unions, and the head of the FBI was saying that they don't exist. Please.
Into a peace which they alone control. The rise to power of Lucky Luciano was the classic example. By the late 1920s, young Luciano was entering his 30s and already a big player in the New York mob. He was one of a few Italians who had valuable connections to Jewish gangsters such as Meyer Lansky
That'll help.
and Bugsy Siegel. It wasn't long before one of the reigning Sicilian dons, Joe the Boss Masseria, embraced Luciano and made him his right-hand man. Lucky had the perfect qualifications for the job: power, connections, and most importantly, Sicilian ancestry.
He was of Sicilian.
But yet he didn't really care about it. I know it's hard to listen to the computer, but this stuff about Dewey, who put him in jail and then later pardoned him because, well, you can't have strikes during a war. You got to go attack them. And then if they say, hey, we're from Sicily, we know we got people over there. Oh, can they help us? Sure, for a price.
Targets: a powerful Jewish racketeer in the Bronx and a founding member of Luciano's commission named Dutch Schultz. The word on the street was that Schultz was planning to kill Dewey. But mob boss Lucky Luciano and the rest of the commission members knew that killing Dewey would only bring more heat on the underworld. So in October 1935, Lucky did the prudent thing. He ordered the killing of Dutch Schultz.
Wow. I don't know if that's prudent or not. You ever hear of Propaganda Duo? They're very popular right now. I think that's how it is, or Population 2.
Good evening. Italy was in search of a new government today for the 41st time since the end of World War II. Government number 40, headed by Prime Minister Arnaldo Forlani, collapsed yesterday under the weight of a most unusual scandal. The revelation that nearly 1,000 of Italy's elite, including 3 cabinet members, were allegedly members of an outlawed, super secret, super evil Masonic lodge called P2. Today, Italian President Sandro Pertini said he would call on a political leader tomorrow to form a new government, and all indications were that leader would again be Forlani. But it may not be quite that easy. Forlani is a member of the Christian Democrats, the party that has controlled the government for 36 years. But they have control through a coalition with the socialists and other parties. Will the others now allow the Christian Democrats to remain in charge? And what about the communists who have been chaffing for a larger role in the government?
Who really
And what is
believes
this
that?
thing called P2 anyhow? What, in short, is going?
Who really believes it? You know, that P2, started in 1877 and ended in 1982. Who thinks it really ended in 1982? Let's don't pick on the Italian Jewish mafia. You don't want to mess with the triad. You don't want to mess with the people that are the remnants of the Boxer Rebellion. Yeah, they're still there. These guys right here, Masonic Lodge, that is super secret. The other Masons don't know about it. You have to be a member of a Mason to join it. And they all consider themselves family men, Roman Catholics, and hey, that's the world you live in. That's who they do it to. It's the mob. No, do they mention the one? What was the? Because I thought they had, like a name for it, Operation Night, Operation Dark Mafia, or something like that. They do, but it's just not jumping out at me right now. So I basically wanted to share the good news about finding, touring the apartment, dedicated the thing, the movie Echelon, because what they really want you to do is not have anosognosia. That'd be bad. That's a medical term for not being aware of one's deficit. You have some deficits, and if you're not aware of them, anosognosia, you're not going to have a lack of insight. Nobody wants that, especially when the whole idea of our new world is like, it's not enough just to go like, I like Paco's version. No, I like the melted tree version or whatever. At least you're self-aware. You're a part of human development. You're into something. You know that you know. You have a recognition of consciousness. You have developing your own character. Certain feelings are only yours. Your motives are yours. Your desires are yours. You realize that. I guess that's a big deal, because reflective self-awareness refers to the recognitions of one's own consciousness. And some people have a hard time realizing they were born in sin. They just can't buy it. They don't believe it. They think that other people might have Nephilim blood or bad blood, but they're okay. They're a blank slate that's done more good than harm, and they've learned about the demon clowns and the book of Enoch. Their interacting brain systems are working. Everybody's really into this. The thing is, it's that in early infancy, when they get you here, and then right after this stage, they throw you in a room where everybody is forced to believe in a globe, and that the world wasn't a racist death trap. In your parents' time, in my parents' time anyway, my parents were born in the 30s. My grandfather on the Hughes side was born in 1889. That's crazy. My grandfather, not my great-great-great-grandfather. My grandfather was born in 1889. I was born in 1958. Pre-operational stage of development. That's not good enough. But when you get to be adolescents, once they can know shame and guilt, pride and embarrassment, by the age of 13, the only thing most children care is the fact that they're not going to fall for that flat earth stuff. It's a globe, and only people that are stupid, the dumbest people in the world, still believe in flat earth. Self-image, self-concept, self-consciousness. Well, that has detriments too. Often assessed as giving patients an anosognosia questionnaire in order to assess their meditative cognitive metacognitive knowledge of deficits. Neither of the existing questionnaires applied in the clinics are designed thoroughly for evaluating a multidimensional self-awareness, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Wow. They have it all figured out, unilateral neglect, caloric reflex testing. Uh, they they do human experiments. They want to affect your brain. They know that they have to affect your brain. Doesn't that look like a face of those googly-eyed monsters that they draw? With, come on. This part that activates in the green here from a real MRI, get a couple different views of when it becomes, it's actually working in there. I've had a couple of MRIs and it's so loud, and they just keep making that same I don't like it. But there's parts in your brain that are active and living and can be in touch with God. And it's your thalamic system. It's all your thalamus, because it's right here in the middle of your brain. That's why they want everybody on Synthroid. And remember, I'm not a doctor. My advice is from the Bible. If you want the worldly advice, go get it. You should go get it. You already know it. You know what they're going to tell you. Their nerve fibers, their thalmocordial radiations. Huh? What? Your aura? And people like me think that with a proper living, and that if your body really is being treated like a temple, it could be true that your eyelashes are as active as a spider's eyelashes when they're moving them around and feeling vibrations. We don't know our potential yet, but now that the Lord has taken the pressure off of that, I've got to figure it out before I lose my scholarship, and that no, he has continued to prepare a place for me, even though I'm walking in the valley of a satanic Jeffrey Epstein Zorro Ranch infested university. That at this point, they tried to put me in jail. They tried to fake bill me. They lied, and then they got caught. So now it's kind of like, Paco, you're our friend. You're a guy. Thanks for not trying to take vengeance on us. That really has impressed them. So as it works out here, it's the thalamus. And the strange thing is that right after that, and it's that these people here, as I was looking up, because, being a volleyball guy and have the volleyball new coach move in right next door to me for the last month and a half, getting to know him and his wife and realizing that's the difference. They finally hired a guy with a wife instead of a guy with a life, because those guys need a chance and lose. He's going to take this team and make them win. And now for the second year in a row, a basketball player is dead. Tawan Jamestown from Alamosa. Excuse me. A sophomore, kind of he was our best player, and he was a hustler. And he died with a 47-year-old man in Alaska, as apparently the only news is they shot each other in the chest. He was 19 years old. He redshirted, but quickly became he's good. Was doing good at school. And then he ended up getting killed with bullets with a 47-year-old man in Alaska. And you can't find out anything about this guy. Tawan Jamestown. And when you look it up and try to get something from besides Adams State, who for the second year in a row now has, and this is all the news that you can get. I haven't been able to find out anything about the 47-year-old, I think, groomer possibly. But this is the story from Anchorage, Alaska. Men fatally shot in East Anchorage. Double homicide, knew each other, police say. Yeah, they're from Alamosa. In Anchorage, they identified two men in a home of a 47-year-old. As a 47-year-old, 19-year-old knew each other. So he must have been in a bed and breakfast. Spencer King, the older man, and the younger man from Anchorage. Only the seventh and eighth person to die. So it's unusual to get people killed in that town. Not really much about a Spencer. So I looked it up and just dead in the morning. Reports of gunfire. Officers arrived and found them dead. Bullet wounds to their upper body. A 19-year-old, our basketball star. Tejan. Do you ever hear about the Evian contest? That's a capital EVIAN conference. Evian. They kind of sugarcoated here. What were we going to do with the Jewish refugees in 1938? Because they want to get out of Nazi Germany. Well, 32 countries said, no, we don't want you. You can't come to our country. We don't want you. But we're getting killed. Find someplace else to go. We don't really know what's going on. Failed to come to any agreement about accepting Jews fleeing the Third Reich. Huh. Well, now that people don't want to admit that, because that would seem that the United States was one of them and everything else, and that the 30s and 40s, it really was that eugenic time. It was that time where the United States was worst of all. You couldn't even be a black guy playing a white team. You couldn't drink out of the same fountains, and other countries had their different situations. But as Satan had it, America didn't join the war until 1941, and they were funding it on both sides, making money like the American mafia do. And it was set up to where they faked the bomb, faked the war, covered up the fact that, they bombed some Star Fort cities and acted like that's all damage that wasn't from Armageddon. Paul the apostle was let down a wall that was 40 cubits high, 40 feet high. The barracks that they talk about. I was in, Athens talking at the Acropolis. Paul was the Bible describes star fort world. When a young man, when Paul, it says, tended to go on much longer, a man fell into a deep sleep, Eutychus, and he fell from the third story loft in the house where they were having house church. Well, in our star fort worlds, we know a lot of 3-story lofts with big galleries, don't we? Where a person could talk to many people in a house church. The Bible was star fort world. We have a damaged star fort world that's being covered up like evolution all led up to World War I, where war almost ruined everything. No, absolutely not. The mafias roll everything. The atomic bombs are fake, and you can prove it because the Einstein Schrodinger math is a joke. It doesn't work unless you plug in dark matter. 97% of your situation has to be a negative dark matter that can cancel out everything else and make their math work. It is a lie. They're going to vaccinate until you die, go back underground, and think they're just going to pull it off again. Except this isn't again. This is 20 more years, and Jesus is coming back to stop the Gog and Magog purge of every last Christian on earth. It's not a rapture next week. It's not a, well, maybe Jesus is coming back at the end of the short season in this. From the very beginning, the decode has been consistent since 2016 when I started Flat Earth Nation, Golden Age Past. It's 2046 based on Daniel 12, in that there will be 1,290 years. Blessed are those who make the 1335 and stand at the end in judgment, where you're going to be judged by your works. Because if your name is in the book of life, that gift of grace is already there. That's settled. You're not saved by your works. You've been given grace, and now you're tested. You are a seed planted in soil, given talent. And if your seed and soil should equal 5, and you come up with 4, you don't make it. Like the one who was given 1 talent, and he said, I still got my talent. You don't make it. Give it to the guy that's got 10. Lord, he's got 10. Give it to him, to whom he maxed out his talents. Obviously, that talent is safe with him. He's going to use it the right way. Revelation 20, verses 11 through 14. It's a great white throne of judgment. Twice it says the people that make it are judged by their deeds. You should know, it does teach in the Bible that the people that are saved have good works laid out for them from before the foundations of the earth. This is a test, because God tests and chastens those that he loves. He does not tempt. This is a real life, and it doesn't have to be all dread and gloom. While I'm in Alamosa within the mountains and they're not attacking us, you can still go have a drum circle. You can still go this and that, because you're doing your best to be away from certain death, which is life in the big city. It's Flat Earth Nation. The Golden Age is past. You have an orphan-trained brain. The Hegelian dialectic takes a long time to get rid of. You have to come to that place in your life where you realize, I'm going to die. I might as well die in faith, because that's the only way you can be sure you won't be blotted out of the book of life. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakame. Adios. Auf Wiedersehen. Ciao. That's not going to